Hello, everyone. This is Blaine Markham, Chief Trading Strategist here at the Optioneering team, and I'm really excited to come to you live with this market update today here on this Friday headed into the weekend. There's been some really interesting activity in the markets today. Of course, you probably saw the inflation report come out this morning. It was the first piece of government data we've gotten in several weeks due to the government shutdown, but nonetheless, we finally got an updated government CPI report. And that report showed that inflation actually came in under Wall Street's expectation for what that number was going to come in at. And that was a massive tailwind for the markets on this Friday session headed into the weekend. You can see just across the board, all four of the major indexes here in the US are up largely on the news, of course. That's more concentrated in the higher beta names. You're talking about the small caps, mid caps. Of course, tech's reacting quite a bit, but you can see, of course, here looking at the chart of the S&P 500, it's up almost 1% on the day, taking a noticeable leg higher. You can see the index is actually now trading above 6,800 on the S&P for the first time ever today in today's session on the back of that really bullish news. And the reason it's such a big deal for the markets is we have a Fed meeting upcoming. The market was already anticipating that likely there would be another Fed cut at this meeting. But today's news with this inflation report only further cemented that we do have a rate cut coming in the next week. So with earnings continuing to come in strongly, the anticipation that a rate cut is now on the way, seeing that probability hike up even more after today's report. All of these bullish narratives for the markets, all these bullish tailwinds have pushed the index to new highs in today's trading. And it pushed it past the key resistance level that the market had been kind of banging its head up against several times over the past month. We can see in the earlier part of the month, the S&P 500 was rallying up to new all-time highs, but it was finding pretty solid resistance around the 6750 level. It traded up to that level on about 6 or 7 different sessions, was never able to really firmly break above it and close above that level. Of course, we got the massive sell-off that we had just several Fridays ago, but we've recovered quite strongly since then. We've put in a nice series of higher lows and starting to trade back up to that resistance level that we've done in the past couple of days. You can see over the last 4 sessions just this week, earlier this week, we traded right back up to that 6750 level, traded up to it intraday several times, failed at that level, traded right back down. But then again, today we finally got that positive catalyst that the market needed to power through that level, seeing stocks break out now up to that 6,800 level. And again, we're on pace for a new all-time high close on the S&P and several of the other major indexes today on the back of today's really strong news. So all in all, a very strong technical signal from the market today. Of course, the long-term trend lines are still very bullish. We have the 50-day moving average still above our 200-day moving average. That's our red and our green lines down here. And of course, the index shown by the daily price action here is above both of those. So we have some very strong technicals just from the longer term point of view. And of course, we're starting to see some reacceleration to the upside, momentum starting to build yet again for the index. So this is a very, very strong outlook for the next couple of weeks to come. Now, of course, we have some big events on the horizon. We have mega cap earnings next week, of course, a Fed meeting and several other major catalysts next week. There's also going to be a meeting between the US and China. That's certainly going to have implications for trade policy. So certainly a lot of things coming up in the next week that likely will be moving markets. But just looking at the charts, it's very encouraging and very constructive what we're seeing here. But next, I want to go ahead and pivot and talk about a recent trade setup that we sent out to our members. This was a live trade alert we sent to our current members that's been performing quite well. So let me go ahead and hop into this one right here. It's for BWXT Technologies. The ticker is BWXT. And we noticed this, of course, is a major player in the nuclear space. And interestingly, it's actually one that is quite profitable. This business has been around for quite some time. They've been a contractor with the government for decades. So this is an established player in the nuclear space, unlike some of the more speculative plays in the market that are unprofitable, have no revenues. This company has been around for quite some time. It's been trading quite strongly this year on the back of the nuclear renaissance and connected to the AI narrative. So you can see BWXT has had quite strong performance looking at the past 6 months, just a very powerful series of higher highs and higher lows, the stock breaking out to numerous new 52-week highs all along this period here. But where our team spotted a very attractive entry point was right along in here. So we could see when the stock had this massive gap up, of course, it came back, settled, got into that gap, but it found some support, came back down, consolidated, built a strong base, and then started to rally yet again. So our team noticed this trend starting to take place right here. We wanted to see it, get some confirmation that it was going to continue to trade higher after that big gap up and seeing the stock sell off and some consolidation following that. But you can see the stock started to gain some momentum, making a new shorter term series of higher highs and higher lows. And it finally looked like it was getting ready to break out to new highs above that gap up. So we had the stock trade up. It got up above the upper Keltner channel right here. And then on this day right here is where our team sent out an alert to our members. It was a call option purchase alert. So the alert was we were looking to buy a BWXT call option to capitalize should the stock continue to trade higher. You can see in very short order, that's exactly what the stock did. It took a massive leg higher over the next couple of weeks. Had a fantastic possible return on that one for any members that were following along. So of course you can see the stock got quite into overbought territory. It was trading well above the upper Keltner channel, and we actually had a chance to roll that trade over on one of the opportunities when the stock pulled back below that Keltner channel, more into our buy zone. The stock was a little less overbought, offering a better chance to roll that over. But as of today's trading in this Friday session, you can see the current day's action right here. You can see a nice move higher just on today's news. Of course, it had a pretty strong bounce back day yesterday as the stock had been pulling back, had a really strong day of trading yesterday, finished near the highs of the session, and has continued its move higher today, up almost to 1.75% today, near the highs of the session once again today. But this call option is still continuing to perform quite well for our members that have been following along with this alert here. And at current prices, it is currently showing a profit opportunity of 362.3%. And again, this is just in several weeks' time. Remember, we only entered this trade on this bar right here. This was the initial entry day. So this is really only just about a month's time. So just a few weeks having over a 360% move higher on this alert right here. So this is one I wanted to highlight for you, that this has been a trade that we spotted. It's been performing very, very strongly lately. We still love the technicals here. It looks like it's starting to reaccelerate once again. So we're going to be keeping a close eye on this one. But this has been a really, really strong trade idea that we delivered to our members. So with that, hope you all have a fantastic weekend. There's certainly some things to be keeping your eyes on for next week's trading. Of course, continuing to get some major earnings next week. The Fed meeting, like I mentioned, some trade meetings between the U.S. and China, several things to be watching. There's certainly going to be market moving, but hope you have a great weekend, and I'll be looking forward to giving you an update next Friday. Take care, everybody.